Welcome to Mental Millennials with your host, Shelby Friesen.
So today I've got Taylor Jmaeff on the podcast, and you've started something super cool, the Choose Kind fundraising, and I wanted to hear more about that. I don't really know a lot about you. We'd met, a couple years ago when we had that house in Brookswood and you doing some cleaning for us. And I remember, I didn't know anything about you. And then I saw you launched the fundraising thing and I was like, fuck, this is awesome. And I wanted to hear some more about it. So, I'm happy to have you on here today to share some of that stuff. And I guess to get started, do you want to, how did you come around to start that or what is it about? We could start with what it's about and then how did you get around to starting that?
Okay, so I started Choose Kind fundraising because I work in the school district, Langley School District. I've worked there for just over a year and a half now, and I'm realizing that mental health is very overlooked in the school district. Not necessarily, I wouldn't even say overlooked. I would say that it's just so common that there's not enough support in the schools, and I don't think that there ever will be. Mm-hmm. About 80% of kids do not get help with their mental health in high schools and elementary schools. There's a shortage for pretty much anything to do with mental health support in the schools, like counseling, mental health workers, and that sort of thing as well. So I didn't even really realize how bad it was actually until I came into the elementary school, where we have one counselor who is retired and he comes in and is about 2 or 3 times a week for the whole school.
And that's just for one school? For one
school.
And does every school have the same thing?
There are, I believe in the Langley School District, there are 10 counselors and there are 3 of them are retired. 4 of them are retired right now. So there's 6 that are there and then 4 of them are just kind of doing it because they really need people. Mm-hmm. I'm just getting very sick of hearing about kids that feel like they have no outlet. They go to school and they're already anxious. Maybe it's because of going to school. Maybe it's because of something that's happened at home. I'm not really too sure. Mm-hmm. But everyone seems to be sorry about bad things that are happening after they've happened, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. So one day I kind of just thought, I'm like, what if I was able to bring more support into the schools? Mm-hmm. And then I thought, I'm just like, well, I've thought this for a while, so why don't I actually try doing that? And that's what I'm trying to do right now. Okay. I've started with just bringing in speakers to the school. I have a speaker coming in this week for Diversity Week. Actually, it's Pink Shirt Day on Wednesday.
Oh yeah, I remember that stuff. Yeah.
So I thought it was a good week to kind of kick off bringing in someone as well. He'll be coming in speaking about social inclusion to elementary schools, which I think will be very beneficial. He seems very promising. I've only met him once. Mm-hmm. So I'm very confident that will go well. And then I'm bringing in another speaker. Well, he's not a speaker actually. He's just a kid who is coming from Edmonton to come speak to high schools at the end of May and June. Mm-hmm. His name's Tyler. He was one of the lucky survivors, I guess, of the Humboldt Broncos crash. Mm-hmm. So, and he posted a video a little while ago about speaking up about mental health. Mm-hmm. And I think it'd be very beneficial for kids in high school to hear his side, his story. Mm-hmm. And
is he still in high school?
No, he's just, I think he is, I want to say he's 20 or 21.
Okay. So
he's a little bit closer to their age as well. And it's I think that was something that really impacted a lot of people, and a lot of kids would really benefit from hearing him speak, because it was such obviously a tragedy, but he's using his negative experience to make a positive impact as well. So that will be very good, as I think.
That's super cool that he's willing to do that and come out here.
Yeah.
How many schools is he going to go to?
I'm not too sure. I have messaged quite a few high schools, if not all of them in the Langley School District, offering to send him to their school. Yeah. I have to have him pick for sure dates. He said just kind of the end of May, beginning of June. So that'll be really exciting once I have that all finalized. And doing a fundraiser, an actual public fundraiser at the end of March for that. So that'll be good.
Yeah. I saw some posts about that actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And how does that work? The process of getting someone into the school, even that guy who's coming in for the diversity thing, how much, what's the process and how much does it cost to get those people in there?
Yeah. So basically, I just do like all the planning, but I have to tell the schools, this is who I want to send to you. These are the days I would like to send to you. What time frame works for you guys? It depends, like cost depends. Like the guy I'm bringing in from Edmonton, it wouldn't be paying him to go to the schools, but I am paying for his accommodations and his flights and that sort of thing. And then,
so he's not doing it to like make money.
No.
Okay.
No. And that's why I was kind of, I was really happy when he did agree to come. Like the professional speakers, like the one I have going in this week, he does cost money.
Yeah.
Right. Obviously. So it kind of just depends on if you have someone like volunteer or not, or if there's someone who you think would really do a good job.
Yeah.
I handpicked this particular one coming this week. He has cerebral palsy and he is all doing the same thing. Like obviously showing like I am different. However, I am still human, and inclusion and stuff has been very important for him, I would imagine, growing up. So it's like, again, he's using something that is in his life for a positive impact on youth, which I think is super important. Long-term goals, I would love to be able to bring more counselors into the schools, more speakers, like youth groups, and just kind of see where the needs are. Since mental health is such a wide spectrum, there's so many different things. I'm trying to just kind of take it day by day so that I'm not overwhelming myself. Because when I first thought of this idea, I was like, I want to do this, I want to do this and this and this and this. But I was getting overwhelmed because there was all these big things I want to do, but you can't do them at the same time, obviously. So I kind of am picking one thing and doing that well first. And then I'll move on to something else unless something pops up on the way. Or if someone comes to me and be like, I really need your help with this, or like I have students that I think would really benefit from this. And if the funding's not there through the school district, then that's where I kind of come in and do fundraisers for that sort of thing.
So they actually will pay for some stuff. Like that speaker that's coming in this week, like they pay, the school district will pay for that?
I'm paying for it because I'm sending it to them. Like, they don't necessarily have all the funding to bring in speakers all the time and talk. Like obviously some schools do and they will. But I just think that it's the same thing. Like if, say, for example, I don't know how many schools in the school district, like 25
in Langley
and something like that. I'm not exactly
quite
sure.
A bit, actually.
Yeah. So then if you think about it, but if only you can only send someone to 5 schools, then it's kind of, and they're not always cheap. Right. So just kind of looking at it from that perspective. Or if I ask, if there's
even just a lot for one, like, it's Tyler, right? That's coming out. Yeah, even for him to come and speak to 25 schools, like that's a lot on his end too. Yeah,
exactly. So it wouldn't be like the 25. Like I've just picked the high schools because I think that kids in high school would benefit more from it than kids in elementary school. Kids in elementary school aren't necessarily, they're just not developed enough to kind of understand what's going on and like what he's talking about per se.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm also trying to send like, it's age appropriate, I guess you could say, to like, depending on where I'm sending these people.
Yeah.
And then, or if there's other people who think that, like I said, if they have students who they think would be benefit from a certain something, whether it's like a support group or like an after school thing, because they don't have somewhere to go after school, I'll kind of start getting those up and running, and then just raising awareness around mental health for kids and having them know that it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
I think a lot of kids really struggle with that because for whatever reason, they think they're going to get bullied or they think that something's wrong with them, but it's not really. And a lot of people, I think, like when they do speak up, males more so, actually, I would say, they think that that makes them like, what's the word I'm looking for? They just don't want to speak up about it because they think it's like a sign of weakness, but sickness is not a weakness. And I think that a lot of people think that it is. Even as an adult, like it is very challenging to talk about mental health for some people. A lot of people won't do it, or they bottle it up and then it will affect you down the road eventually. Right. Or that's when you start getting kids that just like shut down. They stop going to school. They get themselves into trouble. Or they just have like sad mindsets and it's upsetting. Or if they do talk to someone, the person's like, oh, whatever, you're fine. It's a phase. It's puberty.
You know, there's a lot of things that they could blame it on. Exactly.
And I find like some people do because they don't understand. I don't know, right? They just think it's nothing. Or if you tell someone you're anxious, but that person's never experienced anxiety, then it kind of then they're like, oh, you're fine. And you're like, no, I'm not fine. I'm telling you I'm not fine. But they don't take it quite as seriously as they should.
I think, and it's almost like so common now. That's another reason that people are like, oh, like everybody has anxiety or whatever it is. Because, well, I mean, even when I was in high school, I don't really remember anybody really talking about it that much. I mean, I remember like the big thing that I remember hearing about was just ADD.
Yeah.
Like whether people had ADD or not, that's all I heard. Now it's like everybody's like anxiety, depression, all that kind of stuff. It's very common. So I think even in that sense, it makes it easier for people to blow it off.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I also want to provide like safe spaces when kids do go to school, because I feel like a lot of kids it's not necessarily school that's making their life misery. It's like their home life, and that school is their place to go. However, that is not always the best thing either, because then when they have to go home for like spring break or winter break, summer vacation, they don't want to go. But they have no one, like they don't have anyone to talk to outside of school. So they come to school to sort of be somewhere safe, even if they don't talk about it. Yeah. They're still with their friends. They're with teachers that they like, different clubs maybe.
Yeah, I never really thought about that actually. It's kind of like the reverse that, because I was definitely the complete opposite. I hated going to school. I was like anxious to go, but I never would have really thought that I didn't really take part in anything. I didn't like going to the class, like the groups or any of that shit, because it just freaked me out. Yeah. But I forgot that they could use it in the opposite way. Yeah,
exactly. So sometimes like working in an elementary school, I see kids that they're just agitated at school. Like they might not listen. They might act out. They might be violent. I noticed in the high school a lot, that's where I was seeing more of the kids coming there for comfort, not necessarily because they were coming to learn. Not that I'm saying that that's bad, but they would come to say like a resource room, because that was like their safe place. They were able to talk to a teacher or just like talk to their friends or just not be at home. And that was big for them. And like, they would maybe not be the best student, of course. However, at home, it was just not ideal for them. Whatever was going on with their parents have like addiction issues, or if it's like an abusive thing, you never know, right? So then they come and then they're angry, yes, at school, and then teacher's like, oh, this kid's kind of a little shit.
Yeah.
But then again, you're like, but why are they like that? And sometimes they don't want to talk about it either. Like I used to go to school all the time. I was like, I don't want to talk to my teachers, but I'm not at my house, so it's fine. Yeah. Sort of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like that weird middle ground.
Yeah.
It's crazy how much of that even like is just like you're only in the Langley School District. Yeah. So I can't imagine like everywhere else. Would you ever think you would expand like if it got big enough to like all school districts or like?
Yeah, I do. I did think about Surrey School District, obviously, because it's literally right next to us. Yeah. But like I said, I want to do one thing very well first. Yeah. And the Surrey School District is very, very large. So I want to do one thing very well first and get my foot in the door and kind of have the Langley School District know who I am. And then hopefully I'm able to raise more money and get grants from different places once I sort of teach myself how to properly do things. Because I do want to start like a foundation or like an actual proper charity. However, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm trying to plan a fundraiser at a pub for the end of March and I still don't know what I'm doing. So,
well, that's the best way to learn. You know, you're just jumping in and making something happen. I mean, you've already almost raised what, $5,000? Yeah. And that's pretty awesome. How long has it been?
Since November.
Yeah. And like, I mean, that's basically through your personal following and an Instagram page. It's not like you have a huge following or outreach to tons of people. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. I do have a lot of support from my friends, of course. And like my dad and my brother are always super awesome as well. But yeah, no, my friends are definitely going to be very beneficial at this point because they're all willing to help. I have friends that are all different ages, so they can reach out to like their friends and etc. So hopefully things go really well and I'm able to sort of spread the word. Because right now when I explain it to schools, they're kind of like, what are you talking about? Like, who is this person just trying to randomly support us? I guess it would be like, it's just like, oh, I'm just like I work like as an SEA at a school district, but this girl wants to raise money to do this for us. It's kind of odd when someone comes to you and they just want to offer you something, especially when you don't really know who they are, right? But when you get someone like they've heard about, then they're like, oh, I've heard about you. I've heard that this is what you've done. So this way with a couple of speakers, like, oh, I've heard about this speaker. I heard he's really good at this school and that you planned it all. We would love to have like whatever you're offering basically at this point. So that would be really nice. And yeah, I don't know. I want to have people I want to be that person that I needed when I was younger, I think, for kids in schools.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important. And I think a lot of SEAs and teachers are that person for kids as well.
What is an SEA?
Special education assistant.
Yeah.
So I work with kids that have different live with different disabilities, whether it's like a behavior thing or if they have autism and that sort of thing. So it is really nice. So this is, I would say, more geared towards like behavior more so, because that's what I'm more in control of. I can help them with that. Right. So that would be nice. And that's why I tell people if they're feeling a little bit like kind of like crummy about going to work, I'm just like, yes, but you have to understand, like, you might be that reason that other kid's going to school today.
Yeah, true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're like, yes, I finally get to go see Miss Taylor or go see whoever. And then even if you feel like you're not doing something, you still might be that person that they are just excited to go see because they don't want to be at home. Right. So
yeah,
I think it's really important.
Yeah. That's, I mean, well, the other thing, what you said before about the teacher, or when you offer up, like, you're going to bring the speakers and stuff, and they're kind of like, who is this person?
Yeah.
I never really thought about that. I felt like they would just take you right up on it. Like, why would they say no?
Yeah.
Or do they don't take you right up? They're just kind of like, oh, we'll think about it.
Yeah. Sometimes I've had some schools say no, like, we'll think about it. Or
even if it's like you're fully giving it for free.
Yeah.
And they still just say, we'll think about it.
Yeah.
That's weird.
I know, but I guess like some schools like are pretty busy, or they're a little bit like skeptical. Like even when I messaged Tyler in Edmonton, or I reached out to his family, actually, I said, I understand this is very strange. I don't know you. You don't know me, but I would love to be able to do this for you. And I was like, I don't want to interview you or anything like that. Like, I'll FaceTime with you to make you feel more comfortable, because I guess like someone offering you've never met, they're like, oh, let me pay for your flights, your hotel, your stay here, bring like your support team. I would love for you to be able to do this. It would be a little bit weird at first. Like, you might think it's like, is this a scam?
Yeah.
Like, what is going on? I don't know. But so.
And has he done anything like that before? Will this be his first time?
I'm not too sure. I haven't really asked. I'm assuming so. He's probably been contacted by a lot of people to do stuff, but.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
But I'm not really too sure. I didn't really ask. I kind of just like kept it short and brief so I don't bother them.
Yeah, it can be a lot too. I feel like that's something that I do, even with the podcast, because I'm so used to talking about my stuff or other people's stuff that it doesn't bother me. Like, I'll say anything. I don't care to anybody. But someone will reach out, because I'll get a lot of reach outs about people saying like, hey, I really like what you're doing. This is super cool. I've experienced this. And I'll be like, fuck, that's so awesome. Blah, blah, blah. Like, we should totally do a podcast episode here, book this, do that. Like, we'll just talk about all this shit. And then they're like, whoa, like, that's way too much. Like, they're just.
Like, it just seems like a lot at one time when someone's like, boom, let's actually do it. And like make the plan. Like, when it's talked about, like, oh yeah, maybe that'd be great. But when you're like, no, like, this is the day, the time, this is what I want to do. They're like, oh God.
Well, and like, I could be the first person they've ever even reached out to.
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't know that. Maybe they've never talked to anyone and they just saw something and decided they were going to tell me that.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, how about you tell the whole world? So.
Yeah, exactly. Or they feel like comfort with you for whatever reason, or if they're deciding that like it's time to like sort of reach out. And that's kind of like why I did as well, is because I don't like to talk about a lot of things, but I did grow up not necessarily the best in the best situations. And I don't want to get like too into it, but I literally know what it's like to not want to be alive anymore. And I don't want that for kids anymore.
Well, I guess on that subject, for the whole Choose Kind, for starting it, was there anything like from your personal stuff that kind of brought you to that?
Not necessarily. I would just say like I do have a soft spot when, as soon as I hear like their family life isn't good, you know what I mean? Or like their at home situation. I'm like, well, that probably makes sense as to why they're so pissed right now. Like I'm 27 and I can hardly regulate my own emotions sometimes. Like, how can you expect a 6-year-old kid, 5-year-old kid to do the same, or someone who's 12 or 13, the same thing, when they have no choice but to go home, but they don't want to go home. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it's like legally you have to. Yeah. And then they feel, and if they do tell someone, like say if they're at school, like I don't want to go home, and they're like, sorry, like you have to go. Like we're not your guardian.
So like, is there a lot of kids that are like that?
I would say so. I noticed it a lot working in the high school. Last year, you would see a lot of anxiety around the holidays, mostly spring break, things like that, like things where they're not going to be able to come to school. And there are kids who don't want to go home. I remember when I was in high school, I would find ways or like people's ways to not go home or people's houses to sleep at, etc., because I didn't know what I was going home to. So I would just wanted to avoid that whole situation.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, if I went over to like a friend's house, like, oh, can I stay over tonight? Sort of thing. And I'm like, please say yes. Please. Right. So, because I didn't know, I didn't want to go home. I was just like, I have no desire to go do that right now. Didn't know what I was going home to. My mom wasn't the best, unfortunately. She had a drinking problem. So, among other things.
Did you live with both your parents? Or were they split
my
up?
parents got divorced when I was younger. I think right when I got into grade 8 is when they finally did their divorce, and they were kind of separated before that. So, a lot of like, it's just a very unhealthy environment for a kid to grow up in, which is like not in the school's control by any means, but you can also bring kids to school and then have them able to talk about those things and have adults care enough to take the time out of their day, or just like more support if they hear something and it kind of changes their perspective a little bit. Then it might change their mindset long enough to get more help, or change their mindset completely. And then they can figure it out from there.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, right? Yeah, exactly. So you never know. Like, that's why even like if you post something on social media that's like motivational, like for you, you might like it. And some people are like, why are they posting this motivational stuff? But then someone sees it and they're like, oh, like that actually does make a lot of sense. I'm going to try that, or I'm going to change my perspective, or that's like made my day. Something that you need to see one day. And I'm hoping that doing all this stuff for the schools, it's like I can bring people in that the kids need to hear, and then it helps them. Or if they're like, hey, like I am not alone with feeling these things that I'm feeling, or I'm not alone going through what I'm going through. Because a lot of the time I think they're embarrassed. Like they don't want to be like, hey, my mom can't get me from school because she's wasted. They don't want to go to their teacher and say that. So what do? They either walk home or they get in the car with their parent and they're like, well, my mom's drunk again. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like that situation. So I just want them to know, like, if you say something, like, you will be helped, like, you can reach out, you're not alone. Like, I'm sure in all schools, people have parents like this, unfortunately. So that would be nice, so they're not alone. It's okay to not be okay. Right?
Yeah, I think that's super. Like, I think you'd definitely be able to help a lot of people with everything that you're doing, for sure. It's definitely, it's a slow start and takes some time to get going, but I can see it being very big. Helping a lot of people.
Exactly.
For sure.
Yeah, no, it's just because they're very excited at first. So I wanted to go from like 0 to 100 because you have all these ideas. And I'm like, okay, you need to take a step back. Just kind of do like a couple things, like pick one thing, do that, pick another thing, do that. Over Christmas, like the holidays, I kind of just like chilled and actually took a few weeks off when I was not working at the school, just to take 2 weeks off, just to like reset my brain a little bit. So, but it's a new year, or almost March now, I guess. Yeah. So I'm excited for what I can do by the end of the school year for mental health support and awareness. And then hopefully by the end of the year, more schools sort of know what Choose Kind is, and they know who I am. And that they are able to reach out as well, because schools do have a lot on their plate. And I think that it's out of their control.
Yeah, that's something else I didn't think about, was like, I mean, it's even though you're offering up that stuff for free, they still have to like organize an entire assembly and put all this work into getting like everybody into that room to listen. I mean, I still think it should be an easy thing to do, though, if someone's willing to offer stuff like that. But
with enough notice, of course,
Because, well, the school year when is it over? Like, I guess it's only February. There's still
like halfway through months. June, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
It would be good. So, yeah, I'm hoping that sort of by the end of the next year, I can do however else more, or like find, like things always pop up, right? There's always something, but I'm just hoping that by the end, like, just like save one life. That's literally all I want. I don't care how or what it's through, or if it's like through a speaker or through another student going to their friend being like, hey man, like I noticed you've been a little bit off lately. Is everything okay? And like, you don't know if that kid was going to go home and hang himself that day. You don't know. And then their friend like coming to them and just asking, hey, is everything all right? Instead of that kid having to go to them. They've had someone approach them, and sometimes people need that too. They just need someone to ask. Right. So
yeah, I find that a weird place too, because I've been in both situations where, you know, I've been in the shit part where I'm kind of like, I want people to ask, or I've been in the part where I'm trying to like be there for somebody else. And I find that when I almost feel like I might be bugging, or I don't want to ask because, you know, maybe they don't want to talk about it, or maybe me bringing it up could make it worse for them sometimes.
Yeah, like trigger them a little bit.
Yeah. So
or then you get
I'm
the
like,
people who automatically start crying. You're like, oh my God, I'm sorry.
Yeah. And I'm like, I find it hard to know, but I don't know. I mean, I usually just try and reach out to the people every once in a while, but I also don't want to feel like I'm nagging. Like, are you fine? Are you fine?
Yeah,
are you fine? So
exactly. And it's,
like,
no, and it's definitely, there's like that fine line. And I'm sure like people will tell you like, yes, I'm okay. But then like, that being said, would you rather not ask and have something happen?
Yeah. It's like, what are you going to like, I'd rather just, I don't know, I'd rather fucking nag the person than not say anything at all.
Yes, exactly. Or at least like if you did ask, then you've asked just because you care about your friend. And I went to something a while ago at the schools, and we were talking, it was an anxiety workshop, and this lady was just like, oh, well, maybe she said she's never had anxiety. I have no idea, whatever. Anyways, she basically was just like, well, do you think that like maybe we're just over coddling these students? And I'm just like, well, in some situations maybe, but would you rather coddle them or not coddle them and then get that phone call saying that they've taken their own life or that something very bad has happened? And then obviously like you would rather coddle or ask or do whatever it is you can. Like if you can stop something like that from happening, then why would you not at least try? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I'm going to stop anyone from having these horrible thoughts or like doing something to themselves, but at least I'm trying, right? You know what I mean? Like reaching out or like offering help and stuff like that. Cause it's hard to ask for help 100%, especially when you're having these thoughts and you don't think that it's normal. You're just like, you think you're insane. Yeah. You literally think you're insane. Like you convince yourself, you're like, I am nuts. I sound nuts. Like I don't want to tell people this because it's either people like, oh, it's like for attention, or they don't know what to say, or they're uncomfortable. And you're like, I'm really sorry. Never mind. And then they're like, okay. And then that's kind of it. I've had that happen to me as well, where you're just like, well, that was a mental breakdown. And then sometimes you need that. Like an hour later, you're fine. Or you feel better, but it's because you've just got it like out of your system. But then you realize that you're maybe not okay after all. You just feel a little bit better.
A little bit relieved.
Well, yes, exactly. Or if you like message someone or call someone in like a panic and then they don't answer, you're like, fuck. I'm gonna figure this out now. And then they call you back, you're like, I'm fine now. Never mind. But I just think it's important for people to know that there's someone there for them, whether it's like a friend or an adult or a teacher or a counselor or whoever it is, maybe even someone random you meet at a Starbucks, you're waiting in a line and they just ask you, and then all of a sudden you just open up and you just feel way better. You never know, right?
Well, that's the thing, is that I think like it's so common these days, you know, where it's just like, how are you doing? And you're just like, good, you? That's all anybody ever says. No one really like, really tells how they are. And sometimes I ask people where, you know, like, how are you doing? I'm like, well, I don't know. Do you really want to know, or do you just want me to tell you that I'm good? Because some people don't really want to hear it. Like if you really say how things are, they, you know, it can overwhelm a lot of people too. And I've had that where I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm fucking shit right now. This is what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And they'll just be like, oh, okay. They won't know what to say, right? It can be a lot.
Exactly. So. And I've had that happen with students as well. Ask them, like, oh, like, how are you doing today? And they're like, you don't even care. And I'm like, well, I do care, or I wouldn't be asking you. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have to ask you how your day is. With students, especially, I could be like, Kate, what do we need to do? Let's do our work. And like not ask them about their feelings. But if you recognize that someone's just not having a good time, then it's kind of nice to just ask at least. And if you get that sense like they're not okay, just be like, hey, like you seem a little bit off. I just thought I would ask. You don't have to tell me, but like I'm here if you need me. And sometimes that's all someone needs to hear too, right? Is just that they don't have to tell you. It's not necessarily your business. But there is that person that you never know when in a moment of panic, they might reach out to you. You never know. I've had that happen where people like say I'll use this as an example, like from a gym, and they're like, hey, I see you've been posting all this stuff. Like, I'm actually really not having a good time right now. Would you be free to like meet up or talk on the phone or something? And I'm like, absolutely. I love that you asked me, like, thank you. And then sometimes you just need someone to vent to because they don't know what else to do. But it's just not as common with kids because they don't know that these strange feelings are, well, not, I guess they're normal, but not normal.
Yeah, they don't really know what it is.
Yeah, exactly. It's just sort of there, and that's when you get them, like, acting out. Or like, big one for me is suicide for kids. Like, I just can't listen to it. I just feel so horrible about it. I have a very big soft spot. I've had my friends kill themselves, unfortunately, high school, after high school. And it's just not something you ever want to hear. And it's always something that someone wishes that they could have helped with sooner if they had known, right? So
yeah,
exactly. And then obviously like depression and anxiety, and you get like harassment and bullying and all that kind of stuff falls into the categories too. So it is a very wide thing to sort of try to tackle, but
yeah,
that's all right. It's doable, I guess.
No, I think it'll be really good. And yeah, when you talked about the groups, like I think a little like support group or something, like even with a bunch of the kids like of their own age, so they could talk to each other and be like with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's like endless options, really.
Yeah, exactly. I talked to someone a while ago, and even like a grief group or something. If there's a child that's going through grief, or a couple of them, like getting them together to kind of talk about that, because people, unfortunately, kids like lose parents, or they lose like someone who's very close to them.
Yeah,
and even stuff like that can cause like mental health, or like they need help. Like you never know. Like the school I'm at, the teacher, she did mention that a couple years ago, I think there was 4 or 5 students just in her class that needed to go see the counselor. And it was in kindergarten.
In kindergarten. Holy. Yeah, that's like, and I guess what's the process for the kids if they want to see this counselor that's like barely there?
Yeah.
Who do they decide who gets to see and how that works?
Well, that's exactly it. Like sometimes like the referrals like don't always get to them, or there's just not enough time. And that's just kind of it.
And does that person will go into the school and talk to the kids in there? Yeah.
Like they work for the district. It's just like, and they do like an amazing job, but they're just one person for our school's got like 600 kids. Or then you go into high schools, for example, that are like 15 to 1800 kids, and there's 2 counselors for the most part that are there. And then they have all of these kids to sort of deal with, among like doing like their paperwork and all that other stuff. Like there's just not enough time in the day.
Yeah.
And then mental health is just increasing so much in schools. It's brutal.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You know, and people don't really know how bad it is. But if you think about it, and if you think about like the people you know, then you think about how many people that is, and then times that by like 2,000 people.
Well, even the stats are like it's almost like 1 in 2 or 3 people has like anxiety or depression.
Yeah.
So in the school of 1,800, that means 900 kids are dealing with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like close 5 to 900. So how are 2 people supposed to deal with that?
Well, exactly. And then if that means, and that's like who's even talking about it, like coming forward, and then it goes back to people are like they're embarrassed, and kids are embarrassed, they don't know what to do. Like there's just so many different things, and it just, I don't know, it sucks. And then they have like there's homework and all the other stuff that adds to it, of course. And then you just get a couple shitty days, and then kids just don't understand that it's only a day, it's not your life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But they don't think of it like that in high school or elementary school. They literally think that it's going to be like this forever. I remember thinking, it's like, is this actually how life is? Like, this is what it is going to be like all the time. And you can't get out of that. It's very hard to shake that mindset.
Yeah, it's so weird. Like, I don't know. I mean, I don't even really think about high school that much anymore. Because like, I mean, it was a big part of my life, but it wasn't like an enjoyable part of my life. So like, I don't know. Like, I know I would never want to go back in my, like, considering my life now, but it's so weird. I don't know, like when you're in high school, you just have no idea what it's going to be like after.
Exactly.
Obviously, like it's impossible to know that, but I just remember being in high school feeling like it just feels like forever. And like, even also the anxiety of having to go out into the real world, you know, there's so much that is going on in those years. It's wild. It's like a huge change.
Yeah, exactly. But then like looking back, you're just like, high school means literally nothing.
Yeah.
It meant nothing to me. But then when you're in high school and you're in grade 9 and you have 3 more years, you're just like, it's very hard to get into that mindset. Like, this is not forever. This is just for now. But kids don't see that.
And well, I guess a big thing for me, which was kind of goes to the family stuff too, with like my parents, and we'd have to go back and forth and things would happen. I I like you can't do stuff yourself really. Like you can, but you can't, well, you can drive at the end of high school, but it just seems like you're so limited because you can't really do anything. It's like you have to do these things. And I always felt like I was being forced to do everything. Whereas like as soon as high school is over, you can like do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah,
exactly. You have a car, like you can go anywhere. You can leave.
More choices, obviously. And like become like more your own person as well. But some kids, like, they just can't get through it though. They don't understand, like, they just like cannot deal with it anymore. And that's why you get like the suicide rates and stuff going up, is because they can't see past that. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then it's sad, and it happens in elementary schools too, where kids talk about wanting to kill themselves, how they have no friends, how they literally just want to die and stuff like that. And they're 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. And you hear kids say stuff like this and they get really upset, and you're just, and you like, it just breaks my heart. Yeah. Fuck, that's so shitty. Yeah. And you can tell them all you want, like, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. But it also gets annoying. People say that sometimes, like, but it's not okay right now. Yeah. And then like building those relationships with kids where they are able to tell you things. It does happen. And then obviously you can be there as much as you can, but you need them to be able to speak up about it and tell you. Like, I always tell kids I'm working with, I'm like, if you don't tell me what's going on, like, I can't help you. Like, if they're very, like, in high school, especially if they're like super pissed and they're having a bad day, and teacher's like, oh, they're in a bad mood today. I'm like, well, I wonder, like, why? They're like, I don't know. I'm like, what did you ask? Like, maybe something happened at home. Maybe they're going through something. Maybe there's something coming up that is just really making them anxious, but you haven't bothered to ask. And like, usually, like, people are pretty good. Like, they'll ask, but you do need to ask, because not a lot of kids will just come up and be like, hey, this is what happened. It's just not, I don't do that. No. It's not comfortable at all. Especially when I was in high school or elementary school. I was like, that is not happening. Yeah. No, thank you. Absolutely not.
For your initial contact with these kids, like, because if you're mostly working with like the special ed kids, for some of these other kids that are like going through stuff for reaching out and stuff, how do like you end up talking to them? Yeah. Like, do they just come in and...
Well, in elementary school, like, I kind of just work in 1 or 2 classrooms. I work in a kindergarten and a grade 3.
So you're in the entire class.
Yes, you're in the entire class. Yes, yeah. My students, they work in there. And then as for high school, it's the same thing. Like, you kind of just build relationships with the kids. Like, you're in the classrooms, right? They're pretty, like, Langley School District's pretty inclusive. Yeah. With those sorts of things, you want to be in the classrooms as much as possible anyways. But like, even if I'm working with one kid, I still can help other kids like do certain things. And eventually you kind of just start to build relationships with them, like, outside of like what they're doing for schoolwork. Like, what'd you do on the weekend? Is there anything like, I don't know, like, what you're interested in? You kind of like learn stuff about them, and then that's when you start to notice like different behaviors where it kind of makes you wonder, like, I wonder why they're sort of like that. And like, sometimes I find like younger kids are more willing to talk about, because they don't necessarily know that they shouldn't be saying certain things.
Like in elementary school. Yeah.
Like if something's like going on at home, like, oh, like mom and dad fight a lot or something, and they kind of say it like that. But in high school, they know better. They're just like, oh, well, this is going on because this and this. But kids are just like, oh, mom and dad are fighting. Yeah. But in high school, they're like, they kind of realize that it's a little bit more serious or something like that, right? So, or they start to notice like their parents drink a lot, or they start to notice that their parents aren't always around. They start to notice that they're like, their thoughts are processing more into depth, whereas little kids are just like, oh, like, they're not really there, or...
Yeah, they don't really know what it is.
Yeah, they don't know and they don't understand, but I definitely do think it shows up later. Like, when I was in elementary school, I would start to notice that I would notice like a lot of the stuff that my mom was doing. She was drinking a lot. My parents would fight a lot. And I would start to notice like, oh, like I've got pulled over by the cops. My mom would be drunk driving with me and my brother in the car multiple times. But the first couple of times it didn't really make sense to me. Like, I didn't really understand what was going on until I got into grade 6 or 7, and my mom picked us up from a movie, and I had to get her to pull over on the side 200s because she was wasted, and get all my friends out of the car and call my friends' parents to come get us. So so just like stuff like that. And then I started to grow up really quick because I started to notice. And then high school was just like a whole other ball game. So I noticed that's when she started doing like harder drugs, drinking more. And I just knew what these things meant now, whereas before I didn't really. And I would say like it was a fight or flight situation at the time. But I had to do what I had to do at that time to sort of like get through until after I graduated to sort of move on. But now I notice that I'm older, like it does come up and it affects me more in a negative way now than it did then, because I wasn't then I was just kind of like, I need to do this, this, and this. I'm going to school. I'm distract myself as much as possible. But now I notice like when things come up now, it makes me more upset than angry. Like before, it would just make me mad. I'm like, whatever, I'll just do this. I'll deal with it later. But now I notice that I think about it more. But that just is what it is. Whereas opposed of maybe if I had like different outlets when I was younger, if I felt like I had more people I could talk to, it would have been a little bit different. Or if I learned that, like a lot of people knew because my mom was not like secretive about these things. My friends knew what was going on, or people would see her. And at school, they'd be like, oh, like I saw her doing whatever on the road. I'm like, sick. I'm like, why? Like, why? Like your mom's at the park. I'm like, yeah, I know. Fucking tell me something I don't know. You know what I mean? And they would say it almost like in a bugging you kind of way. So yeah, I don't know. Shitty, but it is what it is. And I would say that I could tell you so many things that happened when I was younger, but I would say that a lot of my experiences then, maybe the person who I am now, and that like drives me a lot to like help kids that have mental health issues. Now, and I can use like my experiences as well to benefit theirs, and then maybe like deal with some of my stuff as I go on as well. And then
I think it's definitely helpful for both people. Like the more you work with kids and learn about them and stuff, you just continue to learn about yourself as well. Yeah,
exactly. And doing Choose Kindness kind of giving myself like something to pour my heart into. Like I've literally never loved something I've thought of more.
No, that's
you know what I mean? So that way I know like at least I'm trying to get support for these kids, whether it's like bringing it into the school and helping them like with their school actual academics or just like with their mental state. But like honestly, if a kid is really upset and their cortisol levels are just fucked, they're not learning anything at school anyway.
No.
Like that part of their brain is not receptive to what they don't give a shit about a math equation or reading when their home life, like in the morning, like they didn't get breakfast. You know what I mean? Like you can't teach kids that are not ready to learn yet because of where their focus is.
Yeah. I noticed that for, even when I think about my past, I'm like, a lot of it's a blur and I don't remember a lot because I was always so scared and shit all the time. And like, when you're so caught up in your own head, you're missing everything that's going on. It's like you're just literally sitting there thinking about all your problems and shit and whatever happening. Like
sitting there almost like, I'm not like feeling sorry for yourself necessarily, but it's very hard to shake that feeling once that does kind of come up a little bit every now and again. You like don't want to be in the public.
No.
You're like, absolutely not. No.
Yeah. And it just keeps building and it's not a good time.
No, it's not, especially with stuff like anxiety. And then it's like hard to pinpoint it sometimes of like what is going on. And cause you can't even tell people. Right. So,
I mean, I never knew what it was. Like when I was younger, I had anxiety from as long as I can remember. And I had similar situations with my mom. Like that's when my parents split up. She was an alcoholic as well for a long time. And I remember similar to you, I didn't really understand at first. I was kind of like, whatever, like, I don't really know what drinking is or what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. At the time, they're like, oh, like you don't like put two and two together necessarily. You don't see, and you don't realize that like their drinking is actually like life ruining.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know. And then I just knew I never felt comfortable like being there, but I didn't really know why. It was kind of just like, okay, whatever. I don't like this. This is weird.
Yeah.
And then I remember one Christmas we were with my mom and we were going to a family dinner and my dad had dropped us off at her house and we were getting into the car and we were all in the car. Then she came out and she was like so hammered, she couldn't even get her key in the ignition. Yeah. And she was like laughing and her boyfriend at the time was like, you know, we were all kind of laughing at first. It was just like, whatever, she can't get it in. Like, that's funny. But then he was like, then he started getting mad. He's like, you're literally so drunk. You're going to drive with your kids in the back, all this shit. And then we were basically all crying and freaking out. And
screaming
I'm like,
for your lives.
Yeah, I'm like, fuck. Like,
because then for whatever reason, you probably realize like that is, and it's like something so small like that, but you're finally that is what's going on. And then you start to remember things from there on out because you realize, that is what's that has been what's going on, but you just never heard it said like that before necessarily. Like, oh, like you're drunk driving with your kids.
Yeah.
When before you had never heard it like that. You're like, oh, like where you're driving, and in your head you're like, well, of course she's driving. She's my mom. She gotta take us places. It's fucking just, drive me.
Yeah, it's just crazy. I was like, fuck. And then I remember I was like so fucking mad about it, and like we got there, he ended up driving, and then I got my dad to pick us up. But I remember he even kind of, that was the first time that I really knew, and it really bothered me, and I was like so mad.
Yeah.
And my dad obviously knew, like that's why they kind of split up, or some of the reason. But I would told him like, like she was literally gonna drive with us in the car, like all this shit, like we could have died.
And you were able to explain the situation, like for what it was. It wasn't like sugar coated at that point anymore, I guess you could say. Yeah. It was like very real, and you're old enough to finally understand. You're like, well, my life has actually been a shit show. A lot of things make sense now. Yeah. And that's kind of what happened with me eventually. I can't remember what the first thing I would remember about my mom being like that was, but I remember all the bad things after that were all related to it. So it's like a lot of them are very vivid for me. Yeah. But it's almost like I've repressed, I would say, like, I moved out when I was 19, like everything before that, there's not a lot of good memories, unfortunately, anymore, because so many of them were destroyed by like me finally finding out like what was actually going on when I thought that they were good things. Yeah. But I would think about that. I'm like, oh, like that's why we couldn't do this, or that's why this happened. I'm like, oh, well, yeah, I see.
It is weird how that happens, where you're kind of like, oh yeah, like that, all that shit makes sense. Like my mom moved a lot. And I was always like, oh, like she's got a new place, or like got a new boyfriend or whatever. And like
evicted.
Now I'm like, okay, I know that she probably couldn't afford to play for those places and was like kind of moving in, and then they'd kick her out in a couple of months and she would go somewhere else. Yeah. But at the time, like, I don't know, I was still uncomfortable by it. I didn't like moving around all the time. But yeah, now I kind of look back, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, just like different situations. And it's just like not a good time, obviously, for anyone to have to go through that.
No.
And then knowing what I know now, and that's so I can like use my knowledge to help kids in schools. And then as much as you can, really, like honestly, like you can't do much. Like if I was a millionaire, I would take all of them home. And, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like give them good homes, but at least you can give them like a positive experience at school, at least, like the very least. And then that way they know they have at least something to go from, or who knows if you've like inspired them, or just like, give them that safe place. They don't have to go to school already in misery, because their school is not a good time either for them. So at least help them a little bit with that sort of stuff. Yeah. And I know there's a lot of kids that their parents do like drugs, or like can't afford to feed them. And there's lots of school programs where they offer like breakfast for them when they get there.
Really?
Or like teachers will have like fruit out on their desk and stuff like that, or granola bars, just in case there is kids who like don't have quite enough food or no food. So there is stuff in the school district to sort of help where they can. But that being said, like there's so many kids, you can't, like it's just impossible to keep up pretty much.
Well, and like at an elementary school, there's no way for kids to get food. Like there's no cafeteria at elementary schools, is there? Yeah.
No.
So like if they don't have food, they're not fucking eating.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Well, at least if in high school, you could get some shitty food from the cafeteria or whatever else, worst case scenario.
Yeah, exactly. And they do stuff like, they'll send like bags of food home on the weekend to like kids who are willing to accept it and sort of take it home. They'll have like stuff donated from like different programs that do that sort of thing. So like there are some kids, but then there's some kids who are too embarrassed to take it.
Yeah, yeah.
And they don't want, because they know like if people see me carrying this bag of food, they'll know that I don't have that I don't have that privilege at home. Sort of, and they don't like that, especially if it's like a more popular kid or whatever. Yeah. They don't want people to know that their parents are kind of just fucked, I guess. Or sometimes it's not even their parents' fault. They're trying, but it's just not enough, right? So there's always that.
Yeah. Okay, I didn't even think about the whole food thing. That's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And then if you're not like well fed and you go to school really grumpy, and then your teacher is bitching at you because you didn't get this done, but it's because you're up late, like listening to your parents scream, or trying to find somewhere to sleep. If like your parents, like if your mom has a whole bunch of people doing drugs at their house, like, no, I don't want to obviously be there. You know what I mean? So, and then they don't know, but it's just, I don't know. It's just like such a vicious cycle, unfortunately. And there's just not that support.
No.
Not enough support, I should say. Sorry.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I think, I don't know if you definitely got a long road, but I think it's going to be awesome. Like,
Yeah.
I'm really curious to see how it all works out. I'm excited to see what happens with everything. With Tyler, or I guess, do you have anybody else in mind that you've been reaching out to? Like, is there other people that you're trying to get in? Or
I haven't thought that quite that far ahead. Actually, it was funny. It was I went to a staff meeting to sort of tell the teachers at my school about what I was doing, and I said, if there's any way that I can support you, like, please let me know. And I was kind of just like telling just them at first, like what I was wanting to do for them, and then I went on my Facebook after, and I saw that Tyler had posted this video about speaking up for mental health. It's on YouTube.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen it.
No, I'll watch it though.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, it's weird. Like, I was literally just telling the school, like, if there's anything I can do for you, please let me know. And then this popped up. I was like, oh, that's like a strange coincidence.
Yeah.
So I stalked him down on social media.
That's pretty much what you have to do nowadays.
I know.
Yeah.
And I hate doing that because it's so creepy.
I know. Well, I messaged someone. I did the same thing to someone last week. He started a little thing called Discover Connection. And he basically decided, like, why are people so scared of other people? Like, nobody picks up hitchhikers, all this shit. Like, why would you be scared of someone else? So he decided to do this trip where he went to the East Coast and hitchhiked all the way home. And like, I watched some of his videos where, like, he's like, I literally have no money. Like, I have to find someone who will let me sleep at their house tonight. Like, I have, like, the hostel's $80. I don't even have $80. So, like, it was a pretty cool thing and he videoed it and met all these people and had all these adventures with complete random people to kind of, like, inspire people to feel safe and connect again with other people instead of just driving by and shit.
Yeah, like, not that, and like, no one's like, not everyone is horrible.
No, yeah, exactly.
Like, obviously be cautious.
Yeah.
But you'd be surprised at the kind of people you would meet, like their stories and stuff like that. I feel like a lot of people just don't see people like that anymore. They're like, no, thank you. Not doing that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like, yeah. Well, actually, I've picked up one hitchhiker before. I picked up a kid. I mean, in Whistler, everybody just kind of does it. Like, when I lived up there, it was normal. And like, what a lot of people do is, like, I would actually stop at the bus stop because people would have to wait so long in the cold if they want to go snowboarding. So I would just stop when I was heading down to the city because people are waiting at the higher stops, and I would pull over and they would just, like, get in, throw their boards in the back, and I would just drop them off at the mountain instead of them having to wait for the bus. But that was, like, kind of a normal thing that people would do.
Yeah.
But yeah,
exactly.
I don't know. I've definitely never picked anyone up on the side of, like, Highway 1 going through Hope or something. So
I know where there's, like, no next destination for quite some time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be worse.
Maybe next time I will.
I know, right?
Yeah. But yeah, basically, like, I reached out to him randomly and was like, hey man, like, I really like all the shit you're doing. That's super cool. I'd want to, if you're interested in meeting or, I don't know, talking about it, maybe doing an episode. But yeah, like, he took well to it, and we're going to meet on Wednesday actually. So
perfect. Well, hopefully it goes good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
I don't really know what else to say. I think I kind of told you sort of like why I'm doing what I'm doing, and without getting into too much depth about myself, but just so, I want to let kids know that they're not alone, and then you need to reach out, and that we need to be there for them as well. As adults, like, we just have to keep a very open mind. To some, I think sometimes we forget to kind of put ourselves in other people's shoes, and we have to realize that, like, we don't know what they're going through, and just have, like, someone safe to be there. That's all kids. That's something anyone needs, really, is, like, just, like, one or two people that they can talk to, like, adult or kid or whoever it is.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, that's awesome. You'll be able to provide that and keep growing, and hopefully provide that for a lot of people.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
So, okay. Well then, yeah, I guess, well, we can put your information and stuff too in the show notes, so we can link, like, the website and all that stuff and the donation page for people who want to do that. And then, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay.
Excellent.
Well, thanks for making the time and coming out.
Thank you.